you're here with Just Maria D. It is indeed Maria D, and today I'm going to talk about the B word and 5 things that I think come from it. The B word is the word boredom. We're talking about 5 characteristics that boredom, I believe, cultivates within our children. I get it. I get that having bored kids can often mean chaos in our houses. I understand that. I'm the mother of 5. They haven't always been grown up. Once upon a time, they were little too. So I understand that chaos can ensue when boredom is allowed to happen. But as parents, particularly as modern parents, we need to stop being so afraid of our children being bored. Now, I'm not talking about neglect here. I'm not talking about not ever having activities for them to do. It's lovely to get out. It's lovely to go places. We do our fair share of activities. So that is certainly not what I'm saying here. What I am saying is that while we do our fair share of activities, we also allow time for downtime for being bored. I would just like to add a little note in here that it isn't just me that thinks occasional boredom is good for kids. Psychologists would also advocate for this as well. Boredom fosters creativity within children, and this has certainly been my experience. What kind of creativity it fosters really is dependent on the child. We need to not put square pegs here in round holes, and we need to allow children's creativity to emerge. That is going to mean, I'm afraid, that life might get messy because you might find you have a painter or somebody who likes to do craft. I had a daughter that liked to hoard like a magpie any piece of fabric, any piece of glittery paper in her bedroom, and when she got bored she would make things out of them, or she would sew things for her dolls. She has gone on now to study textiles and design at university. So this thing that was obviously inherent in her as a child, that came from the moments where she got bored and she fostered creative pursuits, she actually then went on to study. In their downtimes, in their moments of boredom, when creativity was allowed to be fostered, no matter how noisy and how chaotic and how messy it was at times, it actually led us to point number 2. That not only does it foster creativity, it allows for children's interests and passions to emerge. If we are structuring all our children's time in extracurricular activities with things that they say they're interested in, or whether they're things that we think that they should be doing to make them a more rounded person, then we are not creating the space for them to allow their natural interests and talents and passions to develop. Sometimes those are going to surprise us, and sometimes they're not going to be the things that we thought they would be. We might think that extroverted child that likes to have people around them all the time actually might want space to read a book. Or that introverted child that we think might be the one tucked away with a book actually might be creating some kind of home business in their spare time. Number 1, it fosters creativity. Number 2, it allows the time and space for their natural interests and passions to emerge. You might find you've got a baker on your hands. Number 3. So what boredom does in this situation, it allows them the space and the ability and the emotional know-how to entertain themselves. I'm not saying that I think that children shouldn't ever do activities and that parents shouldn't ever find things for their kids to do. I'm just saying that it is okay to have days where you don't do anything, and that you are not the entertainment director, and you put the responsibility back on them for keeping themselves entertained that day. Reason number 4 that boredom is good for our kids. It allows them to have space in their own heads. Have you ever noticed that you get some of your best ideas when you're in the shower or on the loo or having a bath? Or maybe that's just me. I know for me, I can be in the shower and all of a sudden have an idea of a vlog that I want to make, and I think, why can't I have a pencil and paper in the shower? This is because we have the space within those environments, if we're not on smartphones sitting on the loo, to actually have time in our own heads to think about things, to reflect on things, to mull over situations from the day, to think about the things that we may need to work on in our lives, to think about ideas that we might want to share with other people. That is what boredom does. When we aren't constantly entertained or inundated with something going into us from the outside, just having the time to have nothing allow us the space to develop reflective and deep thinking. Now, why is that important? Because one, it's where a lot of great ideas come from. Two, because we need to learn to be comfortable with the uncomfortable feeling that arises when we are in that situation. We know it's uncomfortable. We only have to be left alone at the dinner table when we're out at a restaurant. And hands up, guilty of this myself, whip out the smartphone so that as I'm sitting there by myself, there is something that I'm doing and I'm concentrating on. I have tried to do less and less of that and just sit there and wait for the person that I am there with, because I am conscious of creating that space, that it is okay to feel uncomfortable, because when we push past that feeling of uncomfortableness, is that a word? Of being alone and by ourselves and looking like we're alone and by ourselves, that quite often we then start to think about other things, and it creates that space with us to do that, and that okayness in being alone and feeling that way, not needing to constantly be entertained or in conversation or looking like we're with somebody. And if I, as an adult, mid-40s, feel it's uncomfortable, then we need to make sure that we're starting really young with our kids, that they don't feel that discomfort. That's it, discomfort. Uncomfortableness, discomfort. And that they are aware that it's okay to feel like that, and that what we associate as being a negative emotion actually isn't a negative emotion. Everybody feels that kind of discomfort, but we need to push past it and push through it, because then we can only truly be happy and content with our own company. And that is a really important thing to master. And reason 5 why we should allow our children to be occasionally bored is that it helps build autonomy and resilience into them. If they are always looking to us to be the facilitator of their happiness, the facilitator of their joy, then when that is removed, they aren't going to know how to do that for themselves, and they are going to keep looking for the next person to fill that for them. We need to create space where our children can have ideas about things that they want to do and are free to be able to pursue them and do them and be in control of their own happiness and their pursuit of joy. And without space, without boredom, they aren't going to get the chance to do that. So it is a really important thing in their development to give them space, to allow them to be bored, so that it builds resilience in meeting their own needs, that they become strong and they become confident in listening to their emotions, listening to what they need, listening to what they like, working out what they don't like, all of those things. They are becoming responsible and self-directed and owning their own happiness and their own pursuit of joy. 5 reasons why the B word is not a bad word when it comes to parenting. Of course, I'm not saying that we should just neglect our children and not find fun things for them to do. I'm not saying that on any level. As modern parents, let's find some balance in our lives. Allow our children the space to be bored and those great things that come from being bored to develop. It is okay to allow boredom to happen in our homes, and in fact, I think that it is important, despite the fact it often feels chaotic, despite the fact it can often be noisy, and despite the fact it can often be messy. That brings up a whole host of feelings with us as parents that perhaps we need to own and work on as well in our own parenting journey. Anyway, that's enough of that. I have been Just Maria D. You have been awesome, and I'll catch you on the flip side. Bye.